Okay, well, I tried making a video on my laptop, but I forgot to adjust my speaker volume. But anyways, I'm going to give you another rundown, quick rundown with this video on it. Here we go. You all know what this is. This is a nail. Have you ever had a time where you're putting this nail into something and the wood splits? Well, all you need to do is hold that nail upright, bang the tip of that with a hammer, and flatten out that head. Flatten that head out, and that will reduce your chance of the lumber splitting or cracking. And the reason why is, as it sits right now like this, it separates the wood and pushes it apart. When the head is flat, it's now crushing and tearing the fibers of the wood, leaving less material to push back on the wood when the wood relaxes back into its natural state in which it wants to be. Now, knowing this, we're going to go over fasteners. Now, a drill and an impact will do the same job. They'll do the same thing and same everything, and they're the right tool. A drill is the right tool for putting a screw in a fastener, and so is an impact. But the difference is you see this screw, this is greater than a 1/4 inch, and it's longer than 3.5 inches. Okay? This here is less than a 1/4 inch, and it's less than 3.5 inches. This here, you can use any tool at any speed. Any speed, any tool you want to put that in perfectly fine, not going to have a problem. This one here, you're going to want to drill a small pilot hole because it's going to eventually cause that wood to crack and split over time. It'll be miserable. Now, this one here, if you're going to use a drill on these long fasteners, put it on low speed. Do you know why? Well, high speed on a long fastener creates a lot of friction, which creates a lot of heat. What happens to metal and like metals when they get hot? They expand. What happens to wood when it gets hot? It burns. Now, driving this thing at high speed is going to cause the screw to expand and overheat. Now, when metal overheats, what happens on a molecular level? It becomes weak and brittle. Now, when it cools, it's in that hole. That hole is now bigger, been stretched out larger than the fastener actually was designed to be. Therefore, the connection is going to become weaker and it will be easier to separate. And over time, it's going to get easier and easier to separate than going in at a slow speed. So when you're using a drill with long fasteners, put it on the low speed and go slow. Sometimes fast is not your best friend. Sometimes it's your enemy. I've seen buildings fall apart because of stuff like that. I've seen structural buildings and structural designs fail because of things like that. None of that. When you're putting a fastener in, see the head? You want the top of the head to be flush with the wood. You don't want to go and penetrate the wood. Now, if you're going to countersink a hole, drill it out and drill proper countersink. Put it in and fill it. Because when you put a fastener in and the head penetrates the wood, it's now created a weakness in that wood that's going to allow moisture to saturate in faster. And when that wood expands from moisture being on it, it's going to pull deeper and deeper, and that fastener is going to become weaker. So, but yeah. You can use a drill with these long fasteners, but use it on low speed, because if you don't, it's going to superheat. The screw is going to become weaker, more brittle. It's going to swell and be oversized in the hole, and the wood is not going to retract back to the position that it should be to hold and cause a proper lock and proper hold. There's a lot of things wrong with using the drill at high speeds on these. Now, an impact, some impacts are too fast for these things too. And if you can, turn your speed down on your impact to drive them, because sometimes the impact's too fast. But the one bonus to an impact is less fatigue on the motor, less fatigue on the battery. When you're using a drill to drive these things in, heat is conducted through that motor and into that battery really, really fast, and it's got to work. So the longevity of the tool is decreased. Impacts, the tool will last longer doing large fasteners. Not only that, same as the nail. When the impact is impacting, it's gyrating, hitting it down. And what's that gyrating doing? It's breaking the fibers. Therefore, you have less chance of that wood splitting when you're putting the fastener in, and less chance of that wood splitting when it's fastened in and the wood starts to dry. So that's the bonus of that. Now, when it comes to lag bolts, drill a pilot hole at least 1/4 the diameter of the fastener, because if you do not do that, in a couple weeks that board's going to split when it dries, and it's going to start falling apart. It's going to start to rot and become worse. None of that when you're putting large fasteners into a deck or a house or anything like that. Little tip for you: Get some vegetable oil or any kind of oil, dip the fastener in it, put your fastener in, because now that oil is going to saturate into the wood, seal those fibers that have been torn in the wood, and it's going to cause it to last longer, because when this screw goes in, it's going to react with the wood, the moisture, and the chemical treating of the wood, and it's going to cause it to rot and give out faster. So pilot holes for big lag bolts and large fasteners, a little bit of oil on it, and it will last a whole hell of a lot longer. But yeah, when it comes to a drill or an impact, they're both the right tool for the job. You just have to make sure you're using the right speed, the right RPM, and you're doing it smart. Make wise choices. And none of that, when it comes to little fasteners and stuff like that for cabinetry, a nice small low speed, like medium speed drill, 600-700 RPM, 800 RPM, small little compact one that's light in the hand, that has some good trigger finesse, is great. But not only that, if you take a fastener out of a hole multiple times when you're doing screwing, fastener in and out, that's going to make the hole weaker. If you're going to remove a screw and put it back in, do it once and only once. If you do it more than once, make another hole, or put the screw in a different location, because every time you take that fastener out, it makes that joint weaker and easier for that joint to separate. So little tips on using fasteners properly. But what tool's the right job for doing it? Both are. But that's the thing, speed and heat are your enemies with fasteners. And a high-speed drill running at maximum speed is going to be bad for that fastener. It's going to be bad for that joint. It's going to be bad for that drill. So turn down your speed. And same with impact. If you got a high-speed impact, try to dull that speed down on that impact. But when it comes to larger fasteners, an impact is usually quite a bit better, because it's going to tear and break the fibers as it goes in. So that way when the wood contracts, it has actually less material that's still bound together in the fibers to actually contract onto that fastener. So anyways, that's my knowledge, that's my experience, and that's my history. I've seen so many large fasteners that have been overheated because of people going too fast. I've also seen them going in too deep. I've seen them not drilling their pilot holes, and I've seen buildings and structures fail because of these things. So there's the facts for you, and these are truths. And speed is not always your friend. So make wise choices and be smart. Cheers, everyone.